for the adjournment. And the first item is in the name of Deputy Anthony Lawlor, the need for funding from the Environment Fund to be ring-fenced for the remediation of the landfill site at Kerdiffstown, Naas, County Kildare. The Deputy has 5 minutes.
Thanks very much, Cahir. And first of all, I'd like to thank the Count Corla for allowing me to raise this issue tonight on the adjournment. The landfill site at Kerdiffstown, which I live close by, I'll give a little bit of brief history on it. In January, it made national headlines. It was all over the news. There was a large-scale fire there. This fire was associated with the material that was had been left there and lying to one side of the main landfill site. There was also an issue with regard to the potential of some contamination from leachate from the site itself. I looked at some of the analysis of the leachate, and there was a potential for it moving towards a tributary of the Liffey. This tributary is upstream of the leak slip treatment plant, and the leak slip treatment plant supplies water to a lot of North Kildare and northwest Dublin. The current situation with regard to the landfill, when the EPA eventually got control of it, was that they had to sort out a number of issues. The first one, which had to do with the gas extraction. There was a serious issue in the locality with regard to the odours being emitting from this site. Currently, the EPA have put in some gas extraction facilities, and the gas is currently being flared off. They also are constantly monitoring the water in the locality to make sure that the leachate that's currently there is not spreading towards the tributary, as I mentioned earlier on. Currently, the EPA have spent $2.9 million on that phase of the remediation of the landfill. Phase 2 of the remediation process is obviously the planning and design of the remediation of the site. This will involve potentially some planning permissions that may be required to develop cells so that the existing material may be moved safely there. The third phase of it is the remediation. The remediation may take up to 5 years and may come at a cost of approximately 30 million. The question I have to ask is where this 30 million is going to come from. Currently, the EPA are pursuing the directors and the companies who operated the landfill site. The companies, most of them are either in liquidation or receivership, so it is doubtful that if the EPA will be successful in the courts in garnering any money for that. They are also pursuing the directors themselves as individuals, but one would not be too optimistic about securing funding for that. The other source of funding, in which I'm asking the Minister, who I'm delighted to see is here this evening, would be from the Environmental Fund. The Environmental Fund was set up as part of the Waste Management Amendment Act 2001, and it was to be used for activities that are of benefit to the environment. Certainly the use of the Environmental Fund for the remediation of this site would be of definite benefit to the environment, as I've already stated beforehand, with the constant problem with odours and the potential for leachate getting into a tributary of the Liffey. The approximate cost for this will be 30 million. You may well ask, is there sufficient funding in the Environmental Fund? Currently, the Environmental Fund, as of 2010, generated 60 million. In this year, as far as the 30th of June 2011, it has generated 30 million. That is consistent with the returns from it for the last 3 years. There is a current surplus based on the 2009 figures of approximately 40 million in the Environmental Fund. It is my assumption, and when the figures come out from the Controller and Auditor General, that they will show also that there is a surplus for the year 2010. What I am asking the Minister to do, and I understand that this remediation period could last up to 5 years, is to set aside some funding from the Environmental Fund to remediate this landfill. If we don't remediate it now, we have a potential problem in the future. It would be cheaper for us to remediate it over the 5-year period than sit by and say we've done a job well done at the moment and wait 8 to 10 years when the economy picks up and we may have money, but by then we may have a much more expensive environmental disaster to remediate. So consequently, I am here to ask the Minister, would he ring-fence some of the funding that is currently in surplus in the Environmental Fund to secure and remediate this site so that it can be either brought into public ownership, or if it's not brought into public ownership, that a charge can be put on the land so as that the owners of the land will eventually have to pay something towards the remediation of this site. That if that's the case, that we will have cleaned up an environmental hazard in the locality of Naas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister.
I wish to thank Deputy Lawlor for raising this very important matter for his community and the opportunity for me to update the House in relation to the substantial effort being made by the relevant agencies with financial support from the Department of the Environment to address the matters involved. At the outset, I would like to emphasise that substantial funding has already been provided from the Environment Fund, as indicated by Deputy Lawlor, to deal with the situation of the landfill problems at Kerdiffstown, County Kildare. £2.26 million has been made available to support the work of Kildare County Council and the EPA in dealing with the fire which arose at the facility and a follow-up work to address the longer-term issues arising. I am committed to providing funding for additional expenditure to be incurred by the EPA in the period to the end of 2011 in respect of the agency's ongoing work at Kerdiffstown. While further significant expenditure will arise beyond that, it is not possible to quantify this precisely at this time, as the costs involved will depend on a range of factors, including the quantities of waste, the approach to remediation that's required, and the results of the tendering processes. The levels of future funding available through the Environment Fund to fund specific projects and programmes will depend on the revenues accruing to the fund from the landfill and plastic bag levies and the range of competing demands seeking to draw from the fund. Against this uncertain background, that I will appreciate that I cannot give an absolute guarantee in relation to ring-fencing further funding for works at Kerdiffstown in the years ahead, but I can assure him that dealing with legacy issues at Kerdiffstown is a priority for me, and will remain so when it comes to making future decisions on activities to be funded from the Environment Fund. The current situation at Kerdiffstown is that following the completion of the fire-fighting activity on the 25th of February 2011, they were elected, the fire service has passed control of the site to the EPA. The agency is now using powers under the Waste Management Acts to remediate the site and put in place appropriate aftercare measures. I understand that the next major remedial works to occur on site will be the demolition of a number of unsafe buildings. These are scheduled to be demolished in August, and I understand that the EPA, as part of its communication programme in relation to the site, will be outlining the specific dates before works commence. In general, remedial works are continuing at the site as part of a process that will take a few years. Apart from the demolition works I have just referred to, the next phase of activity involves a detailed site investigation which is being advanced and prioritised to the end of this year, followed by detailed design of the full remediation works programme. The EPA has also established a community liaison group comprising of the agency itself, local residents, including members of Clean Air Naas Group, business representatives and Kildare County Council. And the first meeting of this group was held earlier this month and included a site visit for group members and elected representatives of the area. And a range of relevant information is available on the dedicated project website, which has been established by the EPA. I am conscious of the huge environmental damage caused by the reckless and irresponsible management of the Kerdiffstown site by the company. And Deputy Lawlor can be assured that the site remediation will proceed as quickly as possible, but I cannot give the necessary undertakings that he's requiring because I have 200 landfill legacy sites in almost similar condition to the one at Kerdiffstown in need of remediation. I am sorry that I have inherited this particular amount of legacy sites that require this level of remediation and require this type of environmental improvements to be carried out in the interest of the community and in the interest of the environment, but I will do everything possible to assist the Deputy in respect of dealing with this very important matter in respect of the Kerdiffstown community as soon as possible.
Thank you, Minister.